Gedonia is an open-world RPG indie game in early access made by just one singular developer. Launched in mid-2020, this open-world RPG is based on old-school classic RPGs, exploring the world, traveling the world, seeking quests, and hand-tailoring your own class and character to get yourself immersed in. Now, I've been following this game for a while now, and I think I even remember seeing it release in mid-2020, and I had wishlisted it that day. Now, I've been watching it for some time now as well, and this single developer that works on Gedonia genuinely surprises me and makes me happy to see how much he actually updates this game so frequently and keeps close touch with his community and players as well in his own Discord. So welcome to First Few Hours, and I am Thandrew. Now, to get started on the first thing that you see in the game, it is character creation, and it is honestly everything you'd expect from a very early access game. It's not super in-depth, and some of the options are fairly buggy with clipping and showing off that it seems that I just have a wig on and it's actually just me being bald, with a little bit of issues with clipping of the hair. Now, I was able to make a character that I actually liked in appearance, but many may be a bit dissatisfied with the character appearance customization. It may not be for everyone, but I hope that this is something that gets updated in the future and gets more... It just gets a little bit more to it so that there's more options and it looks better. But where the character creation does get very interesting, however, is with the character stat allocation, and this is where some of Gedonia's positives come from. Right off the bat, the game gives you your stats to choose from before going into the game. Strength, agility, charisma, and intellect respectively are the stats that you are able to play around with. Each of these stats have their own tangible benefits to your character as well and how you want to build said character. Now, I will say that you cannot change these stats whatsoever when you are in the game. When you set those stats, you are stuck with them like a classic RPG would, and I think this is a good touch because a lot of RPGs nowadays just allow you to be God and allow you to do everything that you want. But this is a good classic RPG touch. This shows that your choices do matter a fair bit, at least from first sight and right off the bat. Things like not being able to wear heavy armor if you don't have enough strength, not being able to dodge roll with enough agility, gaining extra health regeneration at a high strength, having more available companion slots with more charisma. This game has a fair bit of customization, honestly, right off the bat, which is a very big positive for any classic RPG lover. Now, to go into the story premise, which is the next thing after character creation. Once again, this is something I'd have expected from an early access game. The voice acting is not too good, it's not the worst thing ever, but it's just not there. The story premise is very common and cliche, with the whole left at childbirth quest, and our character is having weird dreams and wants to seek answers because of the dreams they are having. So our character is on our way to climb the mountain near our home village to seek out the answers that they are supposedly going to find in the mountain. Now, I don't really know why the character is so sure that the mountain has the answers, but that is where we are going. And that is where our intro into the gameplay begins. Now, off the bat into the game intro, I'm given controls of the movements of my character. And the controls are relatively simple to understand, which is always good. WASD to move, space to jump, shift to dodge, control to sprint, and the usual of most RPG games. And straight ahead of where I am started, I am given a chest of multiple different weapons, I guess to get more options, to where I may start off for a certain class or build that I'm thinking of wanting to do. Then moving forward through the intro cave, I'm given another set of controls, which again are relatively simple to understand. Left click to attack, right click to use my secondary ability, my skill book on letter B, and Z to holster my weapon. But this is where the game starts to look awesome, and it has lots of potential in terms of an RPG game. And that is the character progression and skill trees. Gedonia has a multitude of skill trees, which took me aback for a second, honestly. I was really surprised to see how much there was, but I was also really excited to see how many options there were for my character to specialize in and advance through. This is definitely one of Gedonia's biggest strengths when it comes to appeasing open-world RPGs or classic RPG fans. There is literally something for everyone in this game in terms of character progression and skill trees. The skill trees are split up into 3 respective categories. Starting with combat skills, you have Ferocity, which allows you to specialize in better damage dealing abilities. Melee Mastery, which allows combat, crowd control, and passive perks in combat. Archery, which is your usual, using bows and skills as expected. Defense, which allows better defense for your character. Banditry, which specializes in stealth, stealing, and lockpicking. And Speech, which allows you to motivate yourself and your party to either buff yourself or weaken your foes. Next after that is magic skills, with Blood Magic starting off, which focuses on using health to deal damage or passively steal health back from your enemies. Arcane Magic, which focuses on mainly utility. Elemental Magic, which prioritizes intense damage or single or multiple targets. Holy Magic, which focuses on healing and buffing or fighting undead monsters. Dark Magic, which weakens your enemies and focuses on healing and buffing and raising undead minions to fight with you. And Nature Magic, which buffs yourself and allies, controls animals and plants, and also enhances your own abilities in combat. And then you have your normal profession and crafting type skill trees, like weapon crafting, blacksmithing, leatherworking, and so on. All of these skill trees have relatively lots of detail in them, and with what I've experienced so far, are pretty fun, and allow for great RPG character building and immersion in what you want to make your character, and to hand tailor it to be what exactly you want it to be. And on top of that, the gear in the game is fairly cool looking for the game's graphics, and they all have very specific uses in your build, which is nice to see keeping its classic RPG touches. I can't wait to see more of this character progression and see what the developer goes into with more detail with skill trees. This has so much potential to be even better than what it is now. And then as we go forward into the cave, we get into a little bit of combat and also a tad bit of storytelling showing our character a certain prophecy and message about two gods, about their two sons, and eternal fight, which will begin soon. But we will discuss combat later, or if you want to skip to it in the video chapters, you can. Now after that, the open world begins. Once the intro cave is completed, I was given a message that shows everything that the game has to offer and what I am able to do, listing out that I could continue my main storyline through specifically marked quest markers, which is a nice quality of life to have. I could explore the open world, find mysteries, maybe get some rewards, and also find some challenges along the way, which is always enjoyable. Complete side quests, even join factions, which I was fairly surprised to see and was eager to know more about. Conquer and clear dungeons to get better loot and gear, and gather resources to craft equipment or build a house, which I was also relatively surprised to see. Now, to get into player factions, which I had mentioned, this is a very interesting part of the game, and I did not expect it, and the game includes factions that you were able to join. Each faction has their own reputation bar, which is nice, and their own tangible benefits for joining the guild, like armor, weapons, accessories, that benefit you in certain ways, and you can even choose to make enemies of certain factions, which is a very cool RPG touch that not many do these days. The amount of options you have for factions is a lot, and it's pretty great for a game so early in development. There's a lot of things here to do for you. The Warrior Guild, the Mage Academy, barbarians that specialize in nature magic, Holy Monastery, bandits, seers, merchants, necromants. Once again, there is something here for everyone, and there is just so much you can do with this. And this is a really great feature to have for any open world RPG. Now, to get into the side quests. The side quests are what I expected, but also not what I expected. I had only done 3 of the side quests at the time of my first few hours playing the game, and lots of them, instead of leaving me with my questions answered during these quest lines, they just left me with more questions. The first side quest was just to get a horse in my local village, so that the horse would like me and let me ride it by obtaining some sugar. Relatively simple, and I was able to acquire my first mount, which had a little bit of janky movement, but it wasn't the worst thing ever. But my next 2 side quests were fairly interesting, honestly. A tree wanted its apples back, or its children back as it called it. But the tree knew it couldn't get its children back for some reason, so it wanted revenge. Now, the the tree told me to give apples to allow its revenge to occur, which I didn't understand, but I guess I found out eventually when I gave the apple to a squirrel and it instantly killed it. And then I went to my local village and gave it to a fisherman. And then he ate it and also got instantly killed. But then the quest instantly completed when I did it, and I got no extra dialogue with the said tree that I got the quest from. It was very odd, and I can only speculate that the fisherman had done something to the tree. But it sucks that I had no questions answered from this quest and it just auto-completed. Maybe it's something that should get more detail in the future. The third side quest made me feel really bad about my choices, honestly, which is pretty good for an RPG. There was a person chained up and was getting struck by lightning. I asked why this was happening to them, and it was because he said he stole food from a mage, but he apparently was lying. I went to the mage to ask him how I can help him get back what this bandit stole from him, and I did as he asked. I gave back what he stole from the mage, but the mage just killed him anyways, despite me asking if he would be freed. I felt really bad for the bandit despite what he did, so I just killed the mage too, honestly. I just went ahead and killed him. I guess now my character is now immersed into being a morally grave RPG character at this point. But the side quests, they were alright. I expected it for this type of early access game, but it also made me feel pretty bad about my actions, which is not something that every RPG is able to do, so that is a plus at least. But to go into combat and gameplay. Combat for this game is hard to talk about, honestly. But I think this part of this game definitely needs polishing. It really does. The combat is very, very janky, and the flow isn't the greatest thing ever, honestly. There are very clunky pauses between attacks, and sometimes you think you hit the enemy, but for some reason it just doesn't connect. Maybe the hitbox of the enemy is smaller than it should be? There's also a lot of clipping issues with the combat. When I killed the mage in his tower, he literally got pushed through the wall when I knocked him back with my hammer while I was trying to kill him. It was funny, honestly, but this is definitely something that needs to be looked at. In my opinion, I think the amount of RPG customization your character has to fleshing out how your character is and how your character is built in a fight, and how it is so well immersed in how RPGs are, in an RPG immersive-esque way, it kind of makes up for how clunky the combat is, because you have a lot of choices to spiffy up your combat experience, and there's a lot you can do to immerse yourself. But it is still something that I really hope can be improved, because the animations and the combat clunkiness is just less to be desired. It can be much better, and with the amount of times that this developer just continues to update his game, I think this is something that can be fulfilled, and I hope it does. But to go into open world events, I was continuing my quest line, my main quest line, but then I realized that I couldn't continue it because I wasn't level 8 yet. So I decided to go and find events to do in the world. I came across 2 different types of open world events so far in my journeys. I saw a supposed world boss on my map, so I went to hunt that world boss down, and I managed to kill it. Another type of event I came across was a challenge that was given by an NPC that asked me to kill a certain amount of enemies under a certain amount of time. These events aren't anything special, honestly. I have seen this type of thing in many different types of RPGs, but it is nice to see in an early access game that the world is getting fleshed out a bit more with these open world events. So nothing is that much samey in a playthrough. But I do hope that these events can be made more unique and fleshed out given time through this game's development. Now, something that really did surprise me was the companion system. The companion system in this game is something that is, honestly, it's pretty good. I thought that the companions would be relatively bare bones due to the game being in early access, but the companions had a whole menu with stats, different ways of fighting which you can direct yourself. They have active abilities that you can get with them, that you can get for them with skill points, and also their own passives that you can get as well with skill points, and you can increase your relationships with them as well. For a game so early into its development, this companion system is even more fleshed out than a game like Skyrim, which I was surprised about. Skyrim doesn't really have much to do with your companions. They carry your stuff, you can give them armor, and that's really it that much. You can marry them too, but there isn't really much besides that. But in Gedonia, you have genuine perks, you can level them up. You can give them skills. You can make them fight in certain ways. It's relatively fleshed out for an early access RPG game, and it's pretty good, and I hope that this can get even more fleshed out to be even better. I really look forward to seeing more from this companion system, and I hope it does get more fleshed out as we continue with this development of the game. But that is the last of these things that I want to talk about and that I experienced of the game in my first few hours. Overall, I think this game has a lot of passion in it. And for an early access open world RPG indie game, the fact that a single person has gotten this much done is honestly telling of how much passion and soul this developer has for this game. This game definitely has its problems, like the combat being very clunky and needing work, enemies walking or getting knocked straight through walls, side quests needing more detail and touch-ups, my character literally being bald behind the hair. There's just things like that that really need some fix-ups. But the amount of detail that the game has with its immersion and RPG mechanics is just so great, and it feels akin to classic RPGs. You have tons of choices when it comes to character progression, the skills all seem very interesting and have its uses, you have player factions that you can join and gain benefits from, like gear, and you even have reputations with those factions. The companion system is relatively in-depth for an early access game. There's a lot here in this game. There's a lot of passion, lots of soul, and lots of care. And I really hope that this game gets the development and polish it needs to go far, and with how much the developer keeps up with the development and how it keeps up in touch with his players in his own Discord, I think that this game can very much be worth it for anyone. I do think that this game is at least worth the try, to at least support the single developer working on such a large-scale game. Open world RPGs are no easy task for any development studio, and the fact that a single developer is doing this much and trying to get this much done is just awesome to see. And I hope this game goes far, and the game is relatively cheap, and this developer deserves the support with how much he cares for this game, and keeps in touch with his player feedback and comments. So overall, I think it's worth it, and I think that you guys should try it out. It's a cheap game, and give this developer some support. It'd be cool to see how far this game can get, because it really does have so much potential, and I hope it goes far. But if you made it this far, I really thank you guys for watching, for anyone seeing my first few hours of this game, and watching my first few hours series, which hopefully will be a series going forward. I've already done a Guild Wars 2 first few hours video, and I hope to do more first few hours videos on other games, because the first few hours of any game is very important to show the player that your game is worth trying. And I think this game definitely deserves the support at least. So again, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this first few hours video. Take care, have a good day, have a good week, enjoy playing games, have fun, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.